Hello, my name is Joshua Gilliland, attorney blogger on Bowtie Law. Thank you for joining me today for a special podcast on the return of early case assessment. This podcast is sponsored by Planet Data. I want to thank them for their sponsorship for this topic. And my guest is Dave Cochran. Dave, my first question to you. How do you define early case assessment?
Well, it's interesting. ECA, or early case assessment, has been in the news for all these years, but it's begun to have a much more focus. And my definition is more of a pre-review component to understanding your data much earlier in the process and utilizing more advanced tool sets earlier in the process, such as, I'm sorry.
No, please go ahead. Tell me more.
Well, a lot of times, a lot of the real cool, sexy tools are used in the review platform. But my thoughts have been, why not move a lot of those tools in review earlier on in the process in a pre-review platform, such as email threading, conceptual search, random sampling. A lot of the tools that lawyers and legal teams need to really understand and investigate their data earlier on can help them thus use those big data sets earlier before it gets into a review platform.
So frequently when we talk about e-discovery cases, a lot of lawyers say like, well, I don't have a case that's e-discovery, meaning that their clients somehow live in 1985 and aren't using technology. So when we think about ECA and when to apply those tools, what type of cases are probably the most efficient where we could use ECA to help focus on the merits of that case?
To be honest with you, I say all cases. We've got cases from megabytes to terabytes, and clients don't really understand what in fact they've got in that data. And they've always said, well, I'm going to give you, 200 gigs, but I'm not sure what's in there. We need to really call and filter that data down. So I want to be able to use, a tool to be able to do that. With that, then, you're taking that 200 gigs and maybe reducing it to 10. And the same thing applies even if you've got, a gig of data. Again, that's a stretch. But I've had clients that have said, okay, I still want to call that gig of data down a little bit because it may be some specific types of data. And thus they're using that ECA pre-review platform to do it.
Well, let's talk about how to apply the technology, and how do you recommend people use ECA to do the culling? And let's try to get a little granular here on what that is.
Sure. Well, I think it really starts in the collection phase, and that if you're doing a good targeted collection, you're beginning to reduce those data sets at that stage in time. And then when the data comes to a provider to put it into an ECA pre-review platform, the data's got to be fully processed so that a lawyer, legal team can do thorough searching. What I mean by that is making sure that all the data has been deduped, making sure that any type of image files that may be in that data set, OCR, making sure that all the decryption has been completed before that, making sure that all embedded objects have been extracted appropriately and done well, so that when that data is in that ECA platform, you can then begin to run your traditional keyword searching or your conceptual searching, run some random sampling, and really begin to investigate those data sets inside there.
So one of the things I like to encourage people to do is get that report from the collection expert and who might be using an ECA application of some kind to identify all the domain names that could be in the data collection, and then identify what they don't need. So if somebody's getting eBay emails at work or their political emails on their work accounts, that's just garbage and most likely completely irrelevant. So knock those out. And the flip side is if they can identify what domains they need. If it's a breach of contract, who are the parties to the contract so they can identify domains, and then from there, identify the people who did the negotiation. So you can really get strategic, because if you have the big software companies in Silicon Valley You don't need like 500 email addresses. You need the 10 that could be relevant for those negotiations. Are you seeing people get that thoughtful in how they approach their cases?
Absolutely, they are. And I think that we've had two examples here lately. One where we had to go to Paris and do an on-site project of well over 6 terabytes of data. And because of privacy issues, we needed to do the actual culling in ECA there on site at the client location. And that 6 terabytes was reduced to a little over 700 gigs. So you can see that the reduction in data size was significant, and it was due to a lot of domain names, getting rid of extraneous data sets, types of document types that weren't going to be party to the investigation, us being able to reduce that down to a much more manageable set. And even one that we're currently working on right now where multiple terabytes were captured in the collection phase, again, without understanding really what was in that data that was collected, utilizing tools to be able to call down by even custodian, based upon what was set forth by the discovery order. It allows you to really understand what types of data is in a respective custodian to then maybe go out and do any kind of supplemental collections, later on, whether it's just docs or email.
So a lot of folks, when they think ECA, they definitely think search terms. They think being able to identify the domains. What other features are now in these applications to help people zero in on finding what's relevant?
I talked a little bit earlier about email threading, for instance, the ability to do a good email threading so you can sort of cut to the chase on a conversation and not have to then do review on all the conversations. You may just want to be able to get to the core conversation and begin to actually identify what in fact was being said by a custodian to another custodian, for instance. I think also then the ability to run conceptual searching across the board allows that ability to really help them understand what other potential terms are in there. I'll give you an example. I have one corporation that utilizes our platform just to do investigations. That's all. They don't promote the data to a review platform or do productions. They just like to get the data in there after it's been collected to be able to just focus on internal investigations.
A lot of folks, when they think getting ready for a lawsuit, that they think big, that they're trying to get the most that they can because they don't want to have any spoliation issues. They don't want to have to go back. But the investigation side of the house, I think, is rather important because a lot of people at the beginning forget about Rule 11 obligations, which get into conducting a reasonable inquiry. Have you seen people use ECA strategically as they're preparing to sue another company to identify what could support their claims and defenses as they're preparing their lawsuits?
Absolutely. What we've seen sometimes is sort of sample data sets coming to us. And then they're running their searches, whether it's traditional keyword or they're running random sampling or conceptual searching. But then they use, reporting is just as important, frankly, as the searches. And so the ability to be able to report on in very definitive detail how a term hit within a piece of metadata, how it hit within a custodian, all the variations that may end up being there. And it gives, as you talked about earlier, about domain names, for instance, if you're getting false hits on data, you know that you need to revise how you're going about and searching that data set. And these types of really detailed reports allow you to be able to better understand your data going forward, and then applying that sample to the larger sets of data once they decide that, yes, we have basis for this suit. Now let's go out and collect, and here's what we want to even do at the collection stage prior to ECA. So I think it gives the legal team a lot better feel for not only the data, but the overall custodial approach to doing the data collection.
That raises some interesting thoughts for preparing for the meet and confer. Now, right out of the gate, the meet and confer cases that turn into published opinions aren't the good examples. The people who do meet and confers right don't end up with opinions saying like, good job, lawyers, here's a gold star, thank you for being awesome. Like that doesn't happen. So we only see the train wrecks come into play. Are you seeing those who are doing the meet and confers effectively, having reports and understanding all the information about their case so they can negotiate with the other side to identify, here are the 10 people that we think are our custodians. Who do you think? Are
Right.
we seeing that kind of preparation, leveraging ECA?
Yes, absolutely. And this report that I was referring to, called a search analysis report. It's a very detailed report. It really allows the legal team to, get into the really deep detail. And they've used these types of reports in a meet and confer situation, and to their advantage, frankly, to the other side.
So could you tell me what kind of data is included in those reports? Just because, so that way we know it's more than like just detail, but like what kind of data?
Sure. Well, for instance, let's say you're running some Boolean searches, and or some proximity, et cetera. What the report then provides is a detailed listing of that search term, what metadata that it hit on within a custodian, and the variations of that data, variations of the key terms where it hit in the respective data. And it goes down to, very, very focused. Reports can go 20, 30 pages long at times, depending upon how detailed the report is. So it allows you to see trending on, for instance, as I talked earlier about the false hits, the false positives, to see where these search terms, what fields they're hitting in. And you may not want them hitting in a header of an email, for instance. You may want it to be only focused on, sort of the meat and potatoes of the actual metadata fields, so that you could then go back and alter the way you're doing your search. For instance, if you're doing a proximity search, whether it's Dave within 10 words of Cochrane, maybe you need to adjust that into Dave within 5 words of Cochrane, or those types of variations. It also then allows you to better understand, how do you want to, are your search terms wrong or incomplete? Do you need to add something? Do you need to change your searching methodology to be more inclusive or more exclusive, for instance? And I think that's what these reports allow you to do, so that prior to going to a meet and confirm, you have a much better feel for what your data really is.
So do you have a top 5 list of what people should think about in using ECA to prepare their cases?
Absolutely. I think that, number one, think about it as an investigatory tool. Look at it as a data reduction tool. Don't look at it as a data calculator. 4, use it in conjunction with your collection process. Those two, I stress a lot, are connected. Data collection and ECA should be seen as complementary. Number 5, look at it as a way to, we haven't talked about budgeting, but a good ECA platform will help reduce that budget from not only from the processing side, but down to the review and the legal time. So a lot of options, and variations to this, but I think that it should be seen as a method, a tool, a solution to better understand data and reduce your overall costs throughout the entire process.
It's really fascinating, and it's nice to see the return of ECA, because it was a huge topic years ago, and now it seems to be back with a vengeance. Now, Dave, how could people learn more about Planet Data and what you do and how you could help them?
Yes, our website is www.planetdata.com. Our phone number is area code 914-593-6900.
That is really specific, almost like you could use it as a search term.
Exactly.
So with that, everyone, thank you for tuning in today. Dave, thank you for your time, and it's always nice to talk. e-discovery strategy with you. And everyone, see you next time. Take care.